It's hard to believe that Mortal Kombat has been around as long as it has. It's been around for more than 30 years. And I don't know, we got so many compelling characters, so many heroes, villains, you name it throughout the past couple of decades. And a lot of people wonder on who the greatest, MK boss of all time is, because there's been a handful of bosses that we've gotten in the main series over time. Um, I think like when it comes down to like, major bosses, Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn are the two names that come to mind because obviously Shang Tsung was, the boss in the very first game. Shao Kahn was the main boss in MK2 and 3. And in MK4 we got Shinnok. But the thing is, I don't know. I feel like Shang Tsung was not as much of a challenge in the first Mortal Kombat game that came out back in 1992. Um, I feel like the Mortal Kombat movie that came out in 1995 definitely, helped elevate him as a character with the whole soul stealing thing, and I guess the issue and the feud with Liu Kang, and Liu Kang, having his brother killed by Shang Tsung. At least that was the story in Mortal Kombat One, the movie in 1995. And then you had Shao Kahn. He was the main villain of MK2 and 3, and he was also the main villain in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And even though Mortal Kombat Annihilation from '97 was a dumpster fire of a movie, a lot of people found it entertaining. And I think in that film, Shao Kahn had killed Liu Kang's brother Kung Lao. I don't know. I feel like the story of Mortal Kombat has been rewritten a couple of times to a point where it's kind of hard to tell like who killed who and stuff like that from time to time. But when it came to fighting Shao Kahn in like the older games, he was really tough. I mean, he was tough in MK2, he was tough in MK3. Hell, he was even tough in MK9. And like honestly, like I don't know if it's just like Raiden's a bad character or what have you, but I don't know. I tried hundreds of times to try and beat Shao Kahn with Raiden MK9, and I don't know. It was just to a point where I never redid the campaign mode again after that because it took such a toll on me mentally and everything. And then I think in MK10 you had Shinnok as the main villain, and he was tough in MK10 compared to MK4. In MK4, Shinnok, I'm not saying like he was a pushover or anything, but I don't know. He didn't seem as threatening or menacing as Shao Kahn did, and and I don't know. I always felt like Quan Chi was actually tougher than he was in terms of a challenge in MK4. And some people will agree that that was the same thing, or that was the same case, and the latter, Mortal Kombat games and all that stuff. Um, you look at characters like Onaga, who was in, I think he was in like Mortal Kombat Deception or Armageddon. A lot of people said that he was really underrated as a villain, and I don't know. They say that he might have been a better villain than Shao Kahn, but that's something that's subjective. Everybody has their own respective opinions on that whole thing. A lot of people hate Chronica because they feel like as a villain, um, she was just terrible to fight in terms of like gameplay for those who played Mortal Kombat 11. You can't do combos on like Chronica. You can't do fatal blows on her and stuff like that. And a lot of people said that Chronica was a pretty bland villain. But the crazy thing is, Mortal Kombat 11 was, I think it was like the best selling entry in the entire series, And some people would go as far as to say that Mortal Kombat 11 was just overrated in general. But but yeah, you've had a lot of villains. You've had, secret, villains who weren't necessarily like major protagonists, but they were like secret boss characters, whether it be Reptile, um, whether it be, I don't think Jade was really a villain. She was kind of like neutral, like for a time being, back in the day. Um, yeah, you had like hidden boss characters, who were they were actually pretty challenging in some of the older games. And once they became regular characters, they became afterthoughts. But but yeah, as far as greatest boss ever in the Mortal Kombat franchise, it's something that a lot of people will go on record and say maybe it's Shao Kahn, um, maybe it's Shang Tsung because of the fact that he can change to anyone and has a damn near unlimited move set because of the soul stealing he does. Um, but yeah, it's like I feel like I don't know. I feel like Shang Tsung as a main villain, he doesn't really get the kind of credit that he deserves. I feel like after Mortal Kombat One, he just became an afterthought because in Mortal Kombat Two, from I think 1993, he was just another playable character, and honestly, he wasn't as much of a big deal. And then MK3, he was kind of just whatever, even though he still remained a major antagonist for the most part. But yeah, that's something that's really subjective. I'm going to go on record and say maybe Shao Kahn was like very tough. He was um he was tougher than Kataro, in Mortal Kombat 2, who was like the equivalent of what Goro was in Mortal Kombat 1. And I don't know, just everything about Shao Kahn was just, screamed like boss. He was the way he would berate you in fights. His hits did a ton of damage. Um, I don't know. It's like he knew your moves before you made them. Um, and no matter what character you chose, he was always difficult to defeat. He was even difficult to get to as you did the arcade ladder in like the older games. But but yeah, I mean, I just feel like Shao Kahn kind of like created an impression to a point where I just feel like it got to a point where like every other villain that came after him kind of just felt subpar, whether it was Shinnok or whether it was Chronica. It's like I feel like he was built up more so than even like Shang Tsung was, back in the day. And after like Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, I haven't really looked at Shang Tsung the same way. I feel like not Shinnok, but Shao Kahn, he's one of the few boss characters that maintained his mystique over time. And like, you don't even have to be like a Mortal Kombat fan to know who he is. You don't even have to be a Mortal Kombat fan to know who Shang Tsung is. Shinnok, not everybody can go on record and say they know who he is if they're casuals. And the same could be said for characters like Onaga, even though he's really underrated. And then Chronica, people know who she is, but at the same time, they would go on record and be like, she's not on the same level as, Shao Kahn was in terms of his peak in popularity.